Aces Wild, Liquor, Luck, and Ladies, Episode 6.
In Coopertown where barrels roll, and whiskey warms the toughest soul, dust and grit and hearts of gold, legends live and tales are told. Ooh-wee, I'm ready for this one.
The next day, while traveling to Cooper, a plan began to unfurl. It wasn't too complicated of a plan. The basics of it revolved around 3 key components: money, guns, and dynamite. But to get the second and third, they needed the first. That involved Chance giving Chase some poker lessons of sorts. Deciding to cheat the tables, Chance would teach Chase sleight of hand, and they would run the gambit. Cooper had several tap rooms and pubs with poker games. The highest stakes were played at the Diamond Saloon, but they were far from playing at that level, and they also needed to gain some notoriety. The Diamond Saloon tables were played as invitation only, and were more of a tournament style, not just your run-of-the-mill poker game. So, starting at the smaller gaming establishments, they would work their way up to the big boys, and in the end, hopefully, cash out big. Using their winnings, they'd hire guns and buy explosives, which would ultimately lead to a train heist. Chance explained that McGregor used the train to bring in opium and haul out ore. In doing so, he'd surely be stopping by the mine outside of Durnville. There, the steam engine took on water, while the workers unloaded and then loaded the containers. McGregor always oversaw these operations firsthand, and was rumored to keep his ledgers in the first car. This way, they always moved around, as he didn't like them sitting in one spot. These rumors provided an impression of being true. Chance saw the first car for himself, a luxury suite car, and McGregor remained the only one ever seen going in or out. For the heist, they plotted to blow the tracks at the water station as the train approached. There, they would seize the ledger, along with McGregor and the opium. All that would then be delivered to the sheriff for processing.
Yeah, sounds easy.
Chase responded sarcastically at the finalization of the scheme.
Rob a bunch of people playing cards, and then rob a train. Great.
Look, the lesser saloons in Cooper are mostly outlaws, and nobody's going to miss a few bucks at the Diamond. Besides, we're doing this for the people. If you got a better idea, I'd love to hear it.
I gave you my idea. We worked the wanted posters.
The wanted posters. Remind me again how long it took you to bring in Red Sky?
Fine, we'll do it your way. But I'm Robin Hood, and you are the merry man.
The first saloon was a seedy venue. While most of the town touted electricity, this place stayed lit with candles and lanterns. Electricity flowed to the place, but apparently, they didn't fancy the bills. The air stank stale with old cigar smoke. The tables gave you splinters, and no cocktail waitresses roamed either. Just a grouchy bartender belting out touches of sarcasm and slinging drinks. The poker table kept very low stakes, and most of the players, including the dealer, were drunk. This was the perfect place to practice. Chase watched Chance work his magic. There was quite a lot to it. Before ever joining a game, they took in drinks at the bar. Chance cased the joint while they made small talk. At a moment when the bartender looked away, he knocked over his drink. Leaning forward with one hand, he caught his glass, while the other hand reached over the bar, grabbing 2 decks of cards.
Hey, Noah, that's on you.
The bartender squawked.
Yeah, it is on me.
Chance glanced down at his soaked vest.
Where's the John?
There's a trough through there.
The bartender said, pointing towards a dark room with no door. The John stunk. Not more than a feed trough, with a drain and hose that led outside. Luckily, he wasn't there to use the bathroom or clean up from the spilled drink. Removing the aces and a few face cards from both decks, he slid them up his sleeves. Pocketing the remaining cards, he returned to the bar. Nudging Chase, Chance gave a glance at what he had tucked in his cuff. Chase gave a and they headed to the table. All in all, Chance played a pretty good card game. Even without cheating and with both of them in on it, cheating wasn't quite as necessary. They had twice the chance of winning. When he did cheat, Chance conned good, causing minor distractions or staring a man down as if trying to read a tell. He idly slipped cards back and forth. Even faking his own tells, he'd give the slightest looks and sounds of joy or disappointment. The whole time, Chase watched in awe while taking mental notes, feeling a little better now about losing to Chance himself. Leaving the saloon a little richer and a little wiser, things started to take shape. Taking their winnings from the day, they rented a room at a slightly nicer establishment. Here they practiced sleight of hand and came up with signals they would use to notify each other of their hands during play. Over the next few weeks, Chase and Chance honed their craft, playing every saloon in town except one. With each game, they gained a little more reputation. Moving from saloon to saloon, the stakes grew higher. The quality of the taverns did as well. Before long, they booked a room at the highly touted Diamond Saloon. Sporting all new duds, they spent their evenings drinking and flaunting. Chase took a particular liking to toying with one of the saloon girls, Belle. She was a petite, ample-bosomed lass with dark, curly locks, freckles, and a firecracker attitude. She showed quite the flirt, too. While he never saw her take a man upstairs, she did know how to work the room and bring in the tips. That minor observation intrigued his curiosity and made him question her role. After a few days of lollygagging around, they finally returned to their room to find what they had been waiting for: an invitation to the upcoming poker tournament. The invitation came none too soon either. Chase started to notice that Chance was enjoying the high life just a little too much. He became concerned that they were spending too much of the money, and Chance took a definite shine to high-quality booze. More than once, Chase wished he could remember just how Tatsuo said,
"Quit drinking, stupid,"
in her native tongue. He found relief in the thought that at least now, it wouldn't be much longer before they could move on with the plan, leaving the cards sharping behind. While relishing that thought, Chase readied to move on, eager to be free of the gambler's life and back to his bounty days. While the boys played their games, Tatsuo was back in Copperton feeling empty and alone. She never got accustomed to Chance's stints away, having visions of him living the high life on the road, visions that appeared often more grandeur than reality. She also knew that Chance drank more when he was away. While he wasn't a mean drunk like her father, he did possess a menacing streak and a tendency toward trouble. Often, he would take his jesting a little too far. For this reason, Tatsuo had good reason for not liking Hooch, that and her father's past. She knew, however, that drinking was a necessary part of the con, and she relinquished to him his own decisions. But she didn't like it. After leaving the saloon life and the parting of her father, Tatsuo got lost in books. She had a small collection stacked on the floor next to her bedroll. They were quite worn, having been read repeatedly. She also had a little pad she liked to doodle in, mostly trinkets from the house, with some attempts at caricatures of family and friends. Things faded quite dully now compared to her days working the saloon before McGregor took over. This night, Tatsuo worked on a picture of Jack. Pulling back his privacy curtain, she tried to capture his likeness. Jack had no idea. He slept on a pile of blankets in his little corner of the room, snuggling with Honey. The two looked quite the pair lying there together. It was Tatsuo's third or fourth attempt at giving the scene justice. Growing frustrated and crumbling up a drawing that most would have considered good, Tatsuo stepped outside for a breath of fresh air. The night sat cold and crisp with the breeze refreshing her as she drew it in. But, unfortunately, the breath was a short one. From the distance, she heard a carriage and horses. Ducking back inside out of caution was something that she had become accustomed to whenever there were passers-by. However, this time, the caution seemed extra warranted. Peering through the slits of wood planks, Tatsuo tried but couldn't make out the group of men. At first, she couldn't hear them either as she leaned against the wall. But soon, they started screaming. The saloon was closed and locked down for the night, and that came as a disappointment for the visitors.
Open up!
Yelled one of the men.
Yeah, we need a drink.
Beating and kicking on the door, the third yell caught her attention.
Where's Jack?
Caught completely by surprise, Tatsuo swallowed hard, and her pulse raced as her heart nearly beat out of her chest. Once again, she peered through the spaces in her walls. Only this time, she looked toward the carriage. At first, she couldn't see anyone. Then, sliding back one of the carriage shutters, there sat McGregor, smugly, smoking a cigar while looking out the window. The carriage was a decadent mesquite color and quite fancy. It looked too suave for the man she knew as Sean, but as McGregor, it fit him perfectly. as he sported a pinstripe black suit with silver cuffs and a felt derby hat. Watching the door with intensity, his henchmen kept pounding until June let them in. Luckily, McGregor had no idea that Tatsuo and Jack lived just across the street. Once inside, the men began blowing off steam. All the while, sounds of glass breaking lingered as the men helped themselves to the bar. Listening to the beating of the piano and the belting out of ballads, Tatsuo waited, frozen and panic-stricken. When Jack was woken up by the commotion, he went to his mom to ask what was going on. She simply replied that he needed to go back to bed. Eventually, Tatsuo laid down, but she couldn't sleep at all, lying there worried that McGregor had come to make a claim on his boy. Late into the night, she fretted. Tossing and turning, the stress became too much. She must make a decision. Packing what little she needed, she tied up loose ends and then got Jack up before dawn. Gently shaking him awake, she whispered in his ear,
"Get honey and follow me."
Where are we going?
Jack asked as he wiped the sleep from his eyes.
"We're going to see your pa."
Really?
Springing out of bed, Jack was fully awake now. Sneaking outside, the three made their way to the carriage. Jack looked shocked. He'd never rode in anything this nice before.
What are we doing?
Jack asked as Tatsuo broke open the door with a pry bar.
"Just help me get honey in. And shh, be quiet."
Then, with Honey and Jack aboard, Tatsuo climbed up front, taking the reins, and they were off. The broken door swinging haphazardly as they made haste down the city streets. McGregor and his men kept none the wiser. They wouldn't wake up until later to find the carriage missing, along with their horses. Turns out, Tatsuo had a busy night before waking Jack. She had unhitched all the horses, hid their saddles, and sent them wandering aimlessly around town, moving through the day like a tumbleweed caught in a gust. Tatsuo and crew shot past other travelers with fury.
I saw the ending before the movie was done. I got thick skin because I've been burned before. I got baggage that you don't know of. Learn the hard way not to trust anyone.
They pushed the horses and carriage to their limits, nearly breaking them both. When night set in, they crept. Jack and Honey joined Tatsuo up front. Holding a lantern, Jack attempted to light the way. Honey growled at anything that moved and some things that didn't. Never stopping, they made Cooper by mid-morning the following day. Tatsuo, Jack, and Honey arrived in town on the final day of the 2-week-long poker competition. And during those 2 weeks, Chase and Chance performed fairly well despite a few setbacks. The back room of the Diamond Saloon dazzled as quite the sight, with poker tables draped in red velvet, as the smell of the intricately carved hardwoods permeated the air. Crystal chandeliers sat over each table. A grand piano struck the strings of the ballads, old and new. Viewing tables lined along a stage above for people to just watch the matches, a buffet of delicacies at their whim. Several women worked the room in brocade, satin-covered, corset-topped cocktail gowns, much classier than the standard shorter dresses up front. Chase found himself happy that Belle moved to the back room for the event as well. The two traded glances here and there, somehow their eyes always finding each other across the crowded room. But the atmosphere didn't play to the shameless flirting of the lounge. Running the table most nights, the poker tournament got off to a great start for the duo. All their preparation was paying off. Every evening, the Gamblers Club got smaller and smaller as another table disappeared from the room, but Chase and Chance always moved on. However, cheating had its way of drawing attention. On the 4th night of the tournament, someone took notice. Not a word was said, they just observed and took marks. Later that night, Chase and Chance celebrated upstairs after a particularly difficult win. Chase almost missed out on continuing in the tournament, but instead, miraculously pulled a straight flush from his sleeve. Chance grew impressed. Having a ruckus time, they both became inebriated, while also needing further inebriation. Chase prepared to get another bottle of whiskey. Making his way to the door, he opened it, startling an eavesdropper, a very sexy eavesdropper. He stumbled forward. She darted up and Chase found himself face first in Belle's ample bosom.
Whoa, What are you doing here?
Chase mumbled as he grabbed her arm to steady himself.
Grab her. Get her in here.
Let go of me.
Belle broke away and pushed past Chase into the room.
What are you doing here?
I saw you sneaking cards. Did you think no one was going to catch you?
So you were spying here to catch us?
Chase barely stood as the words came fumbling from his mouth.
I'm here to blackmail you, you morons. I want in.
Before boobs, but booze. We need a business talk.
Chase rambled as Chance staggered over to take a measure of Belle.
Yes. Booze.
Was all he came back with. Returning shortly, Belle came back with a top-notch bottle of hooch, and so began a beautiful friendship. 2 became 3, and working the tables became a lot easier. The boys let Belle in on their signals, and she took to the game like a fish to water, working the room, spying hands, cueing the boys. They took the tournament by storm, and everything proceeded perfectly. Perfect until the night before the big finale. Chance got sloppy. Maybe it was the drink, maybe it was complacency, but a veteran of the game saw something. There was an uproar when cheat was proclaimed. Chance barely passed his hidden cards to Belle before being patted down. Being that no wrongdoing could be discovered, the accuser found himself removed from the game, and in the end, everything worked out. Only now, things got too heated. They all agreed the last game would have to be won fair and square.
We've got aces, booze, and a new partner in crime. I sure hope this luck holds out.